सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The latest Global Multidimensional Poverty Index report is out, and as you see, politics is broken out between BJP and Congress party, but we'll leave that aside for a moment. This is a very reputed report and report that's taken very seriously. It's done by two reputed, respected international bodies, that is United Nations Development Program and Oxford Poverty and Human Development Index group. They compile data. Basically, they use data that's available from the various countries. They study 111 countries. The latest report is about 111 countries, and they get data from the countries. So in case of India, a lot of this data has actually come from our own National Family Health Surveys, which are wonderfully done. We've spoken about those in the past. Not only are they wonderfully done, they are also extremely valuable because they are so honest and candid. They neither sugarcoat their data nor spray any perfume over it. वो perfume लगा के नहीं आते हैं. So they've taken that data, so you cannot fight with this data. So first of all, I will tell you the good news. Then I will tell you the political fight. Then I will tell you how in the political fight both sides are right. Fourth, it's a conclusion you will draw, but I will also give my suggestion, and I believe you and I will all have agreement on this, on the conclusion that we draw from the political fight. And then we look at some other very interesting and very significant aspects of these findings. So first of all, the good news. You know, just because a political fight breaks out, everything is a political fight. And we start self-flagellating. अपनी पीठ पे अपने आप कोड़े मारने शुरू कर देते हैं. लेकिन the question is that India has done marvelously well in poverty reduction. Now, if you want to look at the good news, there is bad news. There are areas of concern, and there will be political fights. It's a democracy, but look at the good news. In 2005-2006, 55.1% Indians were living below the poverty line as per this definition. This definition is a bit different from what we used to call, or what we are more familiar with, which is the Tendulkar poverty line. This is a more exacting definition. This is not $1 a day. This is $1.90 a day. So in rupee terms today, given today's value of dollar to rupee, it will be about 155 rupees a day. If you are earning before that, then you are below this poverty line. So on this metric, it was 55.1% in 2005-06 in our lifetimes. In 15 years since then, or 16 years since then, it's now come to 16.4%. So from your overall poverty data, your overall percentage of people living below poverty line, you've shaved off almost 40 percentage points, not 40%, 40 percentage points. That's a remarkable achievement for India. Now our population has grown since then. So you would say 2006, India's population was about 117 crores. Today it's about 140 crores. So at 117 crores, 55%, you can calculate. You don't even have to reach out for calculators. It will be about 64 crores. Today in 140 crores, 16% or 16.5% will be just about 23-24 crores. So see, total number of poor people in India has come down by almost 40 crores. That's a big achievement. Now there is a flip side to it. The bad thing is that even at 16.4%, India still has 22 crore 89 lakh people, according to this survey, who live below the poverty lines. That is 228.9 million people. It's too many people still below the poverty line. But you know what? 228.9 million is enormously less worse than 604 40 million, which it was 15 years ago. So for once, savor the good news, applaud ourselves and applaud those who've been running the governments over these 15-16 years. BJP now and before that, the Congress party which led the UPA. We could have always done better. 22.8 crore poor people or 22.9 crore poor people is still a lot. It is still the largest number of poor people for any country in the world. But then also India's population base is much larger. It's also about 1/5 of all the people in the world living below the poverty line, which according to this survey, this report is about 1.2 billion people. Of the 111 countries they studied, they include about population of about 6 point something billion. So it's a very, very, very large sample of population. India, the largest number of poor, but the poor in India in percentage terms almost less than 1/3 of where they were in 2005-06. That's why it calls for celebration. And then we come to politics, and I will tell you how both sides are right. So this is something that we talk about often enough, that there are absolutes and then there are percentages. So what happens? Congress party is now saying this is an argument which on social media is broken out between P. Chidambaram and Amit Malviya of the BJP. And then various people have joined in and statements are being made, discussions on TV are taking place. So the Congress people are saying, look, we took 27.5 crore people out of poverty in our times. BJP has only taken 14 crore people out of poverty. That's correct. That's true. BJP on the other hand says that look, in your 10 years, the average rate of reduction of poverty or the average of the number of people you were taking out of poverty or lifting above poverty line was 8.1% per year. In our case, it's 11.9%. So we've done better. You know what? They are also right. Now, how can both be right? Again, go back to absolutes and percentages. When your absolute is much higher, you can lift a lot of people above the poverty line, you can take a lot of people out of it, and yet percentages will be lower. When absolutes are lower, as was the case when Modi government took over in 2014-15 after 10 years of UPA, when they lift fewer people above the poverty line from that group, percentage would be higher. So it's as simple as that. What matters to us as a country, politics apart, is the fact that in these 15 years, we have taken more than 41 crores, 41.5 crore people, 450 million people. That's almost 500 million people above the poverty line. And it's a poverty line of $1.9 per day, not $1 per day. Now, you might ask me, how do they arrive at this data? How do they determine who's poor and who's not? So this is done in a complex manner, but it's not so complex. If you just look at the detail, it's not too bad. It also looks quite scientific. This is not estimation of this, estimation of that, and not so subjective either. It has a fair bit of detail, and it's not very different from many of the other poverty surveys that are scientifically done and acknowledged. So Global Multidimensional Poverty Index looks at 10 indicators, and these 10 indicators are divided under 3 broad categories. These 3 broad categories are health, education and standard of living, and each category then has its weightage. So under health then you had nutrition and child mortality. Under education you have years of schooling and school attendance. As I speak, you will see this chart from the UNDP report sitting on my screen. So this chart will remain while I speak, and you can always take a screenshot if you so wish. I am also sharing the full report with you. It's 44 pages. It's not such a lot. It's not a big thick potha to read. You can read it maybe in an hour and a half. If you pay attention, you want to speed read it, you can do it faster. So health, under health, there are 2 sections: health, nutrition and child mortality. Each one gets a weightage of 1/6, or what we might call in Hindi 1/6. So 1/6. So under health, 2 categories, nutrition and child mortality. Together they account for a weightage of 1.6 plus 1.6. Education, again education has 2 categories under it. Years of schooling, that gets a weightage of 1/6, 1/6. Similarly, school attendance, which means you might do 10 years of schooling, but you bunk most of the classes, you've rarely attended school. So school attendance also is counted for. That is again weightage of 1/6. So 1/6 for nutrition, 1/6 for child mortality under health, 1/6 for schooling, for years of schooling, 1/6 for school attendance under education. Then you come to the more detailed list, that is standard of living. That has 6 subcategories under it: cooking fuel, sanitation, drinking water, electricity, housing, and assets that you own. Do you own a motorcycle? Do you own a refrigerator? Assets like that. So there again, there are different weightages. For cooking fuel is 1/18, sanitation is 1/18, drinking water is 1/18, electricity is 1/18, housing is 1/18, and assets is 1/18. If you add all of these up, you count the scores on all these parameters, and there anybody who falls below 50 is below the poverty line. Generally, it conforms to about $1.9 a day. Now, there are some definitions that we need to understand. A person is seen as deprived if nutrition, any adult under 70 years of age or any child for whom there is nutritional information available is shown as undernourished as measured by their body mass index. So if the body mass index is really poor, that means the person is deprived. Child mortality, any child under the age of 18 years has died in the family in the 5-year period preceding the survey. School attendance, any school-aged child is not attending school up to the age at which he or she would complete class 8, right? If that is not the case, then that is deprivation. Cooking fuel, the household cooks with dung, wood, charcoal or coal. That is deprivation. Sanitation, the household sanitation facility is not improved according to SDG guidelines, or it is improved but shared with other households. That is deprivation. Drinking water, the household does not have access to improved drinking water, again according to Sustainable Development Goals guidelines, SDG guidelines, or improved drinking water is at least a 30-minute walk from home round trip. That means not 30 minutes away, 15 minutes away, 15 minute jana, 15 minute aana. Electricity, if the household has no electricity, all of these would then mean that a person is deprived. Housing, at least one of the 3 housing materials for roof, walls and floors are inadequate. If that is so, then that is deprivation. Or the floor is of natural materials and the roof or walls are of natural or rudimentary materials, which means आप झोपड़ी में रह रहे हैं तो फिर deprived है. And assets, the household does not own more than one of these assets, which is radio, television, telephone, computer, animal cart, even a bullock cart would do, bicycle, motorbike or refrigerator, does not own a car or a truck. So if a person owns less than 2 of these, then the person is deprived. That is how these indicators are arrived at. Now look at some larger data from across the world. If you look across the world, there is improvement on these parameters across all of the world except some countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So of the 82 countries where trend line is available according to this survey, 72 have made improvements, 9 haven't, almost all of them are in sub-Saharan Africa. If you look at this base of all the people in these countries who are below this poverty line, one group, the most common cohort, which means people who are poor only because they are poor or they are deprived on particular parameters. So that is a group of 45.5 million people who are deprived on 4 indicators. That is nutrition, cooking fuel, sanitation and housing. Of these 45.5 million people, hold your breath, 38.5 million live in South Asia, in our region. So this is really not the kind of top of the pops where we want to be, and even there India does quite poorly, more poorly than our peers in the region, that is Bangladesh and even Pakistan. So we have 34.4 million people in that category. Bangladesh has 2.1 million and Pakistan has 1.9. Now I know everybody likes comparisons with Pakistan and Bangladesh. So look at Pakistan. So given the fact that our population is about 6.5 times more than Pakistan, if Pakistan is at about 2 million, India should have been to be at the same level 15-16 million, but India is 34.4 million, so there is work to do. And one of the reasons India does poorly, in spite of having much better overall figures and much better overall incomes, is that India has large islands of poverty. We'll talk about some of that in a couple of minutes now. So now let's come to one more depressing factoid. Depressing means these are people. What is the number of people across these 111 countries who are deprived on all 10 of these indicators that we just listed for you? All 10. That is 4.1 million people. That is 41 lakh people. These people are 100%ers, unfortunately on the wrong metric, which means they have a 100% deprivation score. Terrible. These 41 lakh people, where are they distributed? 38 lakh of these, which is the poorest of the poor, are in sub-Saharan Africa. Then the Arab world again has 2,14,000, but that's mostly because of the Sudan overhang. Rest of the world, at least on this metric, is not so bad. Then look at your neighborhood. Look at how your neighboring countries have performed. Nepal. Nepal is a very interesting case. Nepal has made a very good improvement. Between 2011 and 2019, the poverty rate in Nepal has come down from 25.7% to 17.7%. That is a big improvement, and the biggest improvement Nepal has made is in sanitation. Then who are these 1.2 billion really poor people all over the world? Of this, almost 50%, that is 593 million. So 593 million of these poor people are children in the age group of 1 to 18. That is worldwide in these 111 countries, about 8% are above 60. So that again adds up to 94 million people, near a crore of people who are above 60. Then see something else very interesting, and this is for all these countries. I will then give you granular data for India as well. 83% of these poor people live in rural areas. That is 964 million, almost a billion people. They live in rural areas. Only 17% live in urban areas. That is 198 million, just a little less than 20 crores. So there is a strong connection between poverty and living in rural areas, not just in India or the subcontinent, but worldwide. 83% of the poor live in rural areas, 17%, only 17% in urban areas. Going further on, if you want to see how is this total base of 1.2 billion poor people divided, Sub-Saharan Africa now has 579 million, that is nearly 58 crores. South Asia is 38.5 crores. It's the first time in a survey that the numbers in Sub-Saharan Africa are more than South Asia, East Asia and the Pacific region put together. That means Sub-Saharan Africa has really declined. So Sub-Saharan Africa is 57.9 crores, South Asia is 38.5 crores, and if you add South Asia plus Eastern Asia plus the Pacific zone, this comes to 49.4 crores. Now I told you that one reason India still, despite its much better performance on the economy than Pakistan, but also barring the last couple of years, then Bangladesh also lags so far behind in its poverty data or extreme poverty data. It's because India has large islands of poverty. So that is Bihar, Jharkhand, UP. Good news is that all three, according to this survey, have reduced their poverty rates faster than the national average. That's the good side. There is the other side of the coin also, which is that of the 10 Indian states which were worst performance on poverty data, only one has broken out of that unfortunate or the sorry group, and that state is West Bengal. So West Bengal must have done something right. All the others have remained there. That's all the Bimaru states. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that we have to use that expression. That is Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. And Madhya Pradesh really is a bad news story. Something is wrong in that state, in the way that state is being governed. On all social indicators, poverty figures, it's doing abysmally poorly. So the 4 Bimaru states and the 2 states that broke out of these, Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, you can add these there. And then there is Assam and Odisha. So that is, those ones still remain there. Only one is broken out of this sad category, and that is West Bengal. So well done, West Bengal. Now we told you the larger urban-rural divide of poverty in this entire group among 111 nations surveyed. But how does it work in India? What's the situation? It's no difficult in India. If anything, the divide is even starker in India. In India, if 16.4% of India is below this poverty line now, 21.2% of rural India is below this poverty line, which means rural India's percentage is much higher than the national average. Urban India is only 5.5%. That means poverty rate in urban India is about 1/3 of the national average, whereas rural India is about 25% higher than the national average. Once again, since we keep talking about percentages and absolutes, I will give you the absolutes also. So while 21.2% of rural India is poor and only 5.5% of urban India is poor, in terms of total numbers, 90% of all of India's 22.89 crore really poor people live in villages. 90%. Only 10% live in urban areas. And whereby, again, if you look at this data, another mystery is resolved, or another point on which there has been a lot of politics and political fighting and name calling, that gets resolved. That is the recent report on the Global Hunger Index, which placed India very poorly. And immediately, Government of India responded and they said this was motivated, methodology was wrong, this was unfair to India, it was targeting India. But you know what? What was wrong with that report is the way it was named. In fact, it's pure headline hunting that people who bring out that report call it the Global Hunger Index. It's not about hunger, it's about nutrition. But you know what? Nutrition does not have the same for sex appeal as hunger. The moment you say hunger, boom, it becomes headlines everywhere, particularly if a country is doing badly. Bhukhe pet so rahe hain, right? Everybody is sleeping on an empty stomach. What is Modi government or Manmohan government or Vajpayee government or Indira government or Rajiv government doing? Whereas that report actually is about nutrition. And that report gives a great deal of weightage to child wastage, child stunting, things like that, which are very, very, very important. We've used this line from lyricist Indivar before, from that 1968 or 69 super hit film Upkar. जिस देश का बचपन भूखा है फिर उसकी जवानी क्या होगी. If a country's children are malnourished, what will happen to its youth? So that is what the Global Hunger Index tells us, that India does very poorly on nutrition indicators, especially for children. And that's where it also tells you that the biggest weakness India has is nutrition levels. And they are taking all this data from our own National Family Health Surveys. So Global Hunger Index and this poverty survey factually are telling you the same thing. Difference is that the other one, the Global Hunger Index, is sensationalized in the way it is named, and that's why it loses its meaning, because it's sensationalized, it makes headlines, it also gets politicized, and countries which come off poorly on it, instead of introspecting or responding or doing something about it, then start a game of name calling. Now, there's a lot of other data in the report, but I'll leave it to you to fish it out. It's an easy report to read with lots of tables, but a couple of more highlights. Look at the last 5-6 years. 2015-16, the rate of rural poverty in India was 36.6%. 2019-21, it's come down to 21.2%. So it's not as if Modi government has been doing badly in this area. It's been doing quite well. For urban poverty also, it's come down in the same proportion in these 5-6 years, from 9% to 5.5%. In conclusion, I'm giving you some slivers of good news. For children, the poverty rate has come down from 39.7% to 21.8%. Mind you, it's still a lot of children who are very poor, but 39% to 21.8%, that's nearly halved For adults, it's come down from 24% to 13.9%. And you know, we just beat up on the Bimaru states, particularly Bihar, but see how well Bihar has done, because they started with a very poor base. So in 2005-06, 77.4%. 77.4%. That's more than 3 out of 4 people in Bihar were below this poverty line. 2015-16, this had come down to 52.4%. Now it's 34.7%. Now 34.7% over a state with a large population like Bihar is still a lot of people below this poverty line. But you know what? 34.7% is enormously better in 77.4%. So the next time people tell you the same line, oh, in this country, rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer, show them the mirror with data like this. Things could be a lot better, but things aren't getting worse. Again, looking at good news in these many years, 2015-16 to 19-20, there are big improvements on sanitation, 24.4% down to 11.3%. Cooking facilities, fewer families are using dung and wood, etc. That's improved from 26% to 13.9%. Availability of electricity has improved the most remarkably from 8.6% to 2.1%. So we haven't stepped into the perfect world as yet. But you know what? Even God doesn't live in a perfect world. A country at any point of time keeps on trying to make the fate and lives of its people better. We've been moving in the right direction across governments. We could just do it much faster.